You're scrolling through your phone at 2 in the morning. You can't sleep, so you open an app. Bright colors, trendy clothes, a dress for $2.99, a pair of jeans for $7. You think, how is this possible? You add it to your cart, then another, and another. Before you know it, you've spent $60 on 20 items. It feels like stealing. It feels like magic. But here's the thing, it's not magic, it's mathematics. Cold, brutal, exploitative mathematics. And the company behind it, Shein, has cracked a code that's making them richer than Zara and H&M combined. While those legacy brands are dying, Shein is printing money. $100 billion in valuation, 30 million orders per day, 250,000 new designs per year. But there's a cost, and you're not paying it. Someone else is. In a factory you'll never see, in a country you'll never visit, on conditions you can't imagine. This is the story of how Shein conquered fast fashion by making it faster, cheaper, and darker than anyone thought possible, and why the dress you're wearing right now might be soaked in something far worse than sweat. The rise of the invisible empire. Let's start with a number that doesn't make sense. Shein launched in 2012, 12 years ago. Zara has been around since 1975. These are legacy empires with decades of infrastructure, brand loyalty, and global recognition. And yet in 2022, Shein's revenue surpassed both of them. Combined, how does a Chinese app with 0 physical stores beat giants that own real estate in every major city on Earth? The answer is simple. Shein doesn't play by the same rules. They invented new ones. Traditional fashion works like this. Designers create a collection, 6 to 12 months in advance. Factories produce thousands of units. The clothes get shipped to warehouses, then to stores. Then maybe someone buys them. If they don't sell, they go on clearance. If they still don't sell, they get destroyed. It's slow, it's wasteful, and it's expensive. Shein flipped the entire model upside down. They don't predict trends, they react to them in real time. Using artificial intelligence and web scraping technology, Shein's algorithms scan Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and every fashion website on the planet. When a celebrity wears something, Shein knows within hours. When a trend starts bubbling on social media, Shein's system detects it instantly. And here's where it gets insane. From idea to product, Shein takes 7 days, not 7 months, 7 days. A designer posts a sketch on Instagram on Monday. By the following Monday, Shein has a knockoff version listed on their app. Zara's famous fast fashion model takes 4 to 6 weeks. Shein does it in 1. But speed alone doesn't explain the price. A $2 dress isn't just fast. It's impossible, unless you're willing to break every rule in the book. The Guangzhou machine. Shein's headquarters is in Singapore. Their CEO, Chris Yu, is one of the most secretive billionaires alive. No interviews, no public appearances, no social media. He's a ghost, but his empire is very real. And it's all powered by one city, Guangzhou, China. Guangzhou is the beating heart of Shein's operation. This is where the magic or the horror happens. Picture this, a sprawling industrial district filled with over 5,000 small garment factories. Not massive Nike-style mega facilities. Small operations, 50 to 100 workers each, crammed into windowless buildings, working 18-hour shifts. No contracts, no labor protections, just speed. Shein doesn't own these factories. That's the genius and the evil of the model. They outsource everything. This allows them to dodge responsibility. If a factory violates labor laws, Shein can say, "Not our problem, we're just the platform." It's the Uber model applied to clothing, and it's devastatingly effective. Here's how it works. Shein's algorithm identifies a trend. Let's say oversized blazers are blowing up on TikTok. The system sends the design to one of Guangzhou's partner factories. The factory produces a test batch, 50 to 100 units. If it sells, they scale up. If it doesn't, they stop. No waste, no risk, maximum efficiency. But efficiency has a human cost. In 2021, an undercover investigation by Public Eye, a Swiss advocacy group, went inside Shein's supplier factories. What they found was dystopian. Workers clocking 75-hour weeks, 18-hour shifts with 1 day off per month, wages as low as 3 cents per item, employees sleeping on factory floors because they couldn't afford to go home. The investigation revealed even darker details. Factory floors with no windows, no ventilation systems despite toxic dye fumes. Safety exits chained shut to prevent workers from taking breaks. Bathrooms locked during work hours. Security cameras monitoring every movement. Workers weren't just exploited, they were imprisoned. One 23-year-old woman, who we'll call Lynn because she feared retaliation, described her typical day. I wake up at 6 a.m. in the factory dormitory. 8 of us share one room. We work from 7 a.m. until midnight with a 30-minute lunch break. The production quota is 120 pieces per shift. If we don't meet it, we don't get paid. My hands bleed from the needles. My eyes burn from the chemicals. But if I complain, they fire me and hire someone else the next day. Another worker told investigators, "I don't have time to shower. I don't have time to eat properly. I just work, sleep 2 hours and work again." This isn't a developing world tragedy from the 1800s. This is happening right now, in 2025, while you're scrolling through crop tops and miniskirts on your phone. And Shein's response? They released a vague statement about improving conditions and working with suppliers. They published a glossy sustainability report filled with corporate jargon. Then they kept printing money, because accountability is expensive and exploitation is cheap. The price of fast. Let's do some math. Because the economics of a $2 dress are genuinely baffling. A typical Shein dress costs about $3 to make. Here's the breakdown. Fabric costs 50 cents. Labor costs 30 cents. Shipping from China to the US costs $1.20. That's $2. Add packaging, warehousing, and payment processing, and you're at $2.75. Shein sells it for $2.99. That's a 24-cent margin. Wait, 24 cents? How is that a business model? Here's the trick. Volume. Shein doesn't make money on one dress. They make money on 10,000 dresses sold per minute, 30 million orders per day. The scale is incomprehensible, and because they use algorithmic demand forecasting, they almost never overproduce. Traditional fashion brands destroy 30% of unsold inventory. Shein's waste rate is under 5%. But there's another factor. The fabric. Shein uses the cheapest materials on earth: polyester, acrylic, nylon, all petroleum-based synthetics. These fabrics cost pennies per yard and can be produced at lightning speed, but they come with a hidden cost. Polyester doesn't biodegrade. It sheds microplastics with every wash. Those microplastics enter the water system, the food chain, and eventually your body. A 2020 study found that the average person consumes 5 grams of microplastics per week. That's the equivalent of eating a credit card every week. And Shein is one of the largest producers of polyester garments on the planet. They're not just selling cheap clothes. They're selling environmental poison, and we're buying it by the millions. The algorithm knows you better than you know yourself. But here's the really disturbing part. Shein's business model isn't just about cheap labor and fast production. It's about psychological manipulation, and they've perfected it. Open the Shein app right now. What do you see? Thousands of items, infinite scroll, constant sales, flash deals, limited time offers, only 3 left in stock, notifications, gamified shopping, daily check-in rewards, spin-the-wheel discounts. It's not a store, it's a casino. Shein's algorithm tracks everything: what you click on, how long you look at an item, what you add to your cart but don't buy, what time of day you shop, what colors you prefer. It builds a psychological profile more detailed than anything Facebook has on you, and then it weaponizes that data. Carnival, the Apolans, is designed to trigger FOMO, fear of missing out. You see a dress you like. The app tells you 12 people have it in their cart right now. You hesitate. The app sends you a notification. Price drop. Only 2 left. You panic. Buy it. You didn't need it. You didn't even want it that badly. But the algorithm knew exactly how to manipulate you into clicking checkout. And here's the kicker. Most of those limited stock warnings are fake. Shein generates artificial scarcity to create urgency. It's the same tactic casinos use with slot machines. Variable rewards, dopamine hits, addiction. A 2023 study by the University of Cambridge found that Shein users exhibit the same brain patterns as gambling addicts. The app literally rewires your reward system. You're not shopping. You're feeding a behavioral loop designed by engineers who studied neuroscience. And it works. The average Shein user makes 8 purchases per year. Compare that to Zara's 3 or H&M's 4. Shein has turned shopping into a compulsion, the environmental apocalypse. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the planet. Fast fashion is already one of the most polluting industries on Earth. It's responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions, more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. But Shein took that model and turbocharged it. Here's the reality. Shein produces 250,000 new designs per year. That's 685 new items per day. Every single day. Most of those items are worn once, maybe twice, and then thrown away, because they fall apart, because they go out of style in 3 weeks, because Shein has already released 10 newer versions. The average Shein garment is worn 3 times before it's discarded. 3 times. And because it's made of synthetic materials, it doesn't decompose. It sits in a landfill for 200 years, or it gets incinerated, releasing toxic fumes into the atmosphere. But the damage starts long before the clothes reach your closet. Polyester production requires massive amounts of fossil fuels. The dyeing process pollutes rivers with carcinogenic chemicals. In Guangzhou, the water near garment districts runs black, blue, or red, depending on what color is trending that week. And the carbon footprint. A single Shein order generates the same emissions as driving your car for 15 miles. Now multiply that by 30 million orders per day. That's 450 million miles of emissions every single day. Shein's entire business model is based on consumption without consequence. They've made it so cheap and so easy to buy clothes that we've stopped thinking about the cost. Not the dollar cost, the real cost. Why we can't stop buying. So if Shein is this evil, this destructive, this exploitative, why are we still shopping there? Because poverty isn't always visible. A college student living paycheck to paycheck can't afford a $60 sweater from a sustainable brand. But she can afford 6 sweaters from Shein for the same price. A single mom with 3 kids can't justify spending hundreds on back-to-school clothes, but she can dress her entire family for $70 on Shein. The cruelty of late-stage capitalism is that it punishes ethical consumption. Doing the right thing is expensive, and when you're broke, morality becomes a luxury you can't afford. Shein didn't create the problem, but they're exploiting it with surgical precision. They've built an empire by making fashion accessible to people who've been priced out of traditional retail, and they've done it by offloading the true cost onto people even more vulnerable, the workers in Guangzhou, the communities living next to polluted rivers, the future generations who'll inherit a planet choked with microplastics. It's a pyramid of suffering, and we're all somewhere on it. The future of fast fashion. So what happens next? Shein is facing increasing scrutiny. The European Union is considering legislation to ban ultra-fast fashion. The US is investigating labor violations. Activists are organizing boycotts. But here's the hard truth. Shein is too big to stop. They've already won. Even if regulations shut them down tomorrow, 10 new companies will rise to take their place. The model has been proven. The demand exists. And as long as there are factories willing to exploit workers and consumers desperate for cheap clothes, someone will fill the void. Shein's success isn't an anomaly. It's a symptom of a global economy that prioritizes profit over people, of a culture that values novelty over sustainability, of a system that makes it easier to destroy than to create. Chris Q, Shein's billionaire founder, is worth an estimated $30 billion. The workers who make his fortune possible earn 3 cents per item. That's not a business model, that's feudalism with an app. And the most terrifying part, we know all of this. We know the labor violations, we know the environmental damage, we know the psychological manipulation, and we keep shopping. Because that dress is only $2.99, and it'll look great in a photo, and everyone else is doing it. So the next time you open the Shein app, ask yourself, what's the real price of cheap? Because someone somewhere is paying it, and it's not you. Final thought, Shein didn't invent fast fashion, but they perfected it. They turned clothing into data, workers into algorithms, and all of us into addicts. The question isn't whether Shein is evil. The question is whether we're willing to stop feeding the machine. Subscribe to Wealth Decoded, because the cheapest price tag often hides the highest cost, and we're just getting started.